Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin our webinar with Superintendent Micah Hill on return to school in about a minute, so please stand by. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're pleased to bring this program webinar to you with Superintendent Micah Hill of Kalispell Schools and a discussion about the return to school and everything going on around that. This is a very important topic for our community and for all the businessmen and women out there. It's a huge area of search for us on the kalispellchamber.com website. An intense topic of interest for the quality of schools here in the Flathead Valley and around Kalispell, for the quality of schools for businesses looking to relocate or expand here in the Flathead Valley. And of course, it's an area of important interest to our members for all the men and women who are workers and their ability to get back to work in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. So very important to our community and our businesses in so many different ways. And so Micah, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I know there's a lot of demand on your time from parents and teachers and administrators all across the district. I want to thank you for joining our board of directors here in the last month or so, and we're going to look forward to working with you beyond COVID-19 and into the future and supporting schools and all the great work that you and your colleagues do in our community. And so with that, I'll turn the podium over to you, Micah, for your presentation. Then we'll go to Q&A, and so I'll remind our listeners, if you'll go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and look at your menu bar, there's a function on there that says Q&A, and that's where you can type in your questions, and we'll get to those, as many as we can in the time we have allotted. So Micah, take it away.
All right, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to our community today. I did just get a tweet from a colleague that was linked to an article that said why the worst job in education right now is the superintendent's. And so I don't know if that's supposed to make me feel better about what I'm doing or not, but I am enjoying my job so far, and want to share with everybody a real quick overview of our plan for reopening schools, and then really open it up to questions, because there's a lot of questions. So I'm going to share my screen and just take you through a quick PowerPoint, talk through a few of the things, and then we'll get to the questions. I am sorry, I am it was working earlier and now it is not. So give me just a second. There it is. So when we initially set out to have the discussion around how we would reopen schools in the fall, we had to work with a number of organizations, including our governor, the Montana Office of Public Instruction. We're looking at guidance from the CDC, looking at guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics, guidance from just a variety of organizations and institutions around the country. And when we developed our operational phases, we identified 4 phases. Phase 0 is really, if the schools were in phase 0, we would be in the shelter in place order from the governor. And right now the governor has us in phase 2, but we also looked at phase 1, and in phase 1, schools will be closed with the possibility to provide smaller groups. So we could look at an A-B type schedule. You're seeing a lot of hybrid schedules, even locally in our valley with some of our smaller districts. But we have chosen to not introduce a hybrid schedule into the scenario at this point, just because of the logistics that are involved, knowing the impact that that is going to have on families, on our teachers and staff. And so we have decided that we're going to be in phase 2. We're going to return to full-time in-person instruction. Parents do have the choice to opt out of in-person instruction, and they can choose remote instruction, and I'll get into some details on that in a little bit. And then phase 3 is really everybody's returning to full-time in-person instruction. And I really don't see the district moving from phase 2 to phase 3 unless the governor changes that order for us. So once we had the phases somewhat established, then we started getting into the operational guidelines. And, you know, I refer to the operational guidelines as kind of the 1,000-foot view. We have 10 different buildings in our district. We have schools that range in size from 1,400 plus down to just a couple hundred students. And as we developed our operational guidelines and our phases, we were also working with our valley. Sorry, my phone's ringing at the same time. With our partner schools in our valley to look at trying to create something that looks very similar across the board. We share families, especially at the high school level, but we also know that we have employees who have children in other districts and vice versa. But our guidance really looks at 3 layers. There are the requirements. These are the things that schools must do. And so if you were to go to that particular document, which is on our website, you will see in blue the requirements. So under a specific heading of, say, hand hygiene, there are going to be requirements that must take place. And then below that are recommendations. And these are things to do if feasible. So a big question that comes up a lot is the physical distancing, 6 feet. We know that it is not possible to physically distance 6 feet in our buildings with everybody in place. And so those recommendations are really to look at, okay, if it's feasible, can I do this? And if so, then you should. And then considerations would be just another layer to those requirements and recommendations. So we really tried to give an overview of what that could look like in our schools. And the questions that I'm getting right now are really around the very specific. What is lunch going to look like at Hedges School? And that's a hard question to answer. I can say in general, here are the requirements for what that will look like, but I can't give the absolute specifics because each individual building will have to work on what that looks like. They are working on master schedules and having to rearrange things to accommodate what we're asking them to be required. So one of the other key components to this is the remote versus in-person instruction. And we initially surveyed our parents and gave out, you know, here's what phase 2 looks like. And we, from that, we had about 800 students who indicated that they would be taking the remote option for instruction. We had a deadline of August 7th to actually register for that. Currently, we have about 600 students. But I got lots of feedback from parents saying, I don't have enough information. I need to know what classes are going to be offered for my child at the high school level in particular. And parents who were saying, you know, it's going to depend on what the masking requirement is. If you require masks, then I may pull my student from in-person instruction, and also the converse of that. If you don't pull a mask, if you don't if you don't require masks, we will pull our student from that. So we are in the midst of planning. We met with all of the high school administrators yesterday. We have over 150 students with 3,000 course requests and over 300 unique course titles. It's really hard to replicate what we do in person in a comprehensive high school and do that in a remote environment. You talk about classes like IB classes, AP classes, Project Lead the Way engineering classes, music classes, our VOAG program, all of those different courses and options that we have available for our students, which we're very fortunate and blessed to have, but we just cannot replicate that. And so what we did yesterday is we sat down and we looked at all of those course titles and all of those requests, and we really tried to build a schedule that gave our students the greatest opportunity to meet their academic goals. Included in that is the flexibility to be able to say, you know, I'm going to be remote for say 6 periods a day, but this one class, my IB English class, I really want to participate in that, and I'm willing to come into the school to do that. Or we have teachers who are saying, I'd be willing to teach that synchronously, so that student has that option. We're also looking at offering BYU independent study courses that the district will pay for. Again, everything is trying to be as flexible and as accommodating as we can, but just an understanding that we can't offer everything. A big component to what we're trying to do, and I think questions that are on everybody's mind, is health and safety. And we have undertaken a number of steps, and obviously working with our county health department, KRMC, infectious disease specialists, our local pediatricians. It's pretty universal right now that there are 3 W's that schools need to have in place in order to open and remain open. And you know, so washing your hands, you know, healthy hand hygiene is one of the single biggest things that people can do to create a safe environment. Wear a mask. Last night, our school board approved the requirement for all students, staff, and visitors in our buildings and on our buses to wear a mask. And that was a lengthy conversation, but by and large, the vast majority supported that, and so our school board voted to make that a requirement. And the other one is watch your distance, and that's getting into the physical distancing. You know, the local pediatricians told us that, you know, 6 feet is amazing. If you can get 6 feet apart, that's great. But 5 feet is really good too. And 4 feet is better than 3. And so we're just going to do what we can within our facilities to maximize the space that we have available. And it's going to include being creative. If there's opportunities to take kids outdoors while the weather's great, we're going to do that. If there are spaces in our building, our flex rooms and auditoriums and gyms and areas where we can spread kids out, we're going to do those things as well. Another topic that's been on some people's mind is health screenings. And I know initially, you know, hospitals, at the airport, I went to Flathead Lake Lodge once this summer, you know, had my temperature, was asked all these questions. In a school setting, you know, even the CDC, you know, said that it's not really, I can't remember the exact quote, but they basically said that, you know, they're not really a helpful preventative measure in a school setting. Parents can give a student Tylenol to knock their fever down before they send them to school. If a student is outside playing around and running before school starts and we take their temperature, it's pretty likely that they'll have an elevated core body temperature because they've been exercising. We also know that students are asymptomatic. There are more and more cases and research is supporting the fact that people can be asymptomatic and still have COVID. So health screenings, you know, from a perception standpoint seem like a good thing, but just, you know, in all of the effort to do that, we're not really sure we're going to capture what people are hoping we will capture. That's not to say that we won't see students in our classrooms that are symptomatic and would do those health screenings as we've always done, you know, in schools for 100 years. We've been taking temperatures and and sending kids home when they're sick. And I think another important thing to keep in mind around this too is that last year in February, there were 7 viruses in the valley, and they all have very similar symptomology to COVID. And so there's also this, in the back of my mind, this worry that every symptom that comes up is going to be seen as COVID and create kind of an alarmed community. And we have to be measured in our response. And we are going to be asking our parents to screen their children before they send them to school. Can I guarantee that 100% are going to do that? No. But even with the screenings, there's no guarantee that a student is going to be asymptomatic and sent to school. And so we just recognize that. We recognize that in all of the planning and all of our efforts, everything we're trying to do is to minimize risk, but there's nothing that is 100% and fail-safe in that. The other things the pediatricians really commented on was immunizations and how important that is going to be for people as we start coming back to school, especially for children, and getting the flu shot and whatever necessary immunizations that are required is going to be a real key factor for us. Other things that we've done and will continue to do, obviously lots of commentary around air quality. We certainly have schools that have classrooms that have no windows, but we do have ventilator units in all of them. We're going to be running those at near max capacity so that we're getting a full air exchange every 20 minutes. We'll be encouraging opening doors and windows and putting fans in classrooms. We're upgrading our filters, and those present some challenges too, because those units, when they're running at full capacity, are very noisy, and the higher quality of the filter, the harder the unit has to work to push air through. So there's some trade-offs in that. With regards to PPE, that personal protective equipment, obviously we have masks, we've been donated masks, and we will provide them for students and staff that don't have them. The challenge is they need to be cleaned frequently, and so making sure that happens. But I think also identifying what is effective. The pediatricians who were available for the board meeting last night, we had a conversation around that. Is face shields acceptable? And they would say, probably not, because there's still a space and it doesn't protect the wearer and it doesn't protect people on the other side of that. So we've got some work to do around really identifying the issue around masks. I've received emails from parents who said, my student has asthma and can't be forced to wear a mask. And that can be a bit of a challenge, because when you ask the medical professionals, they say, really everybody it would be very rare that there would be an exception to wear a mask. And even someone with asthma should be able to wear one, but would probably need to take it off if they were having an asthma attack or needs to use their inhaler, things like that. We have a variety of sanitizing supplies. We've got aerosol, atomizers for disinfecting and cleaning all of our schools, all of our buses. We are gifted 360 gallons a month of hand sanitizer. And I think an important note on hand sanitizing is that washing with the antibacterial soap and water is more effective than hand sanitizer by itself. If you look at the labels on hand sanitizer, they're good for bacteria, but not necessarily for viruses. So again, washing with soap and water is best, but hand sanitizer is also good. We've ordered plexiglass desk shields to go around all of our offices and high volume areas. We've also ordered 400 individual carousels that can be moved and placed in front of a student for face-to-face interactions with teachers. We have purchased and are working at getting installed bottle fill stations as opposed to drinking fountains. Again, just trying to take every precaution that we can to make sure that we maximize safety for our students and staff. And all of this information is located on our website, and we will be updating that information as things change. It's very fluid and dynamic. You know, even with the mask requirement, that has certainly become an area where we have to do a considerable amount of updating in both the operational phases and in the operational guidance. So that is a really quick overview. There is a lot more detail that goes into everything that is going on in our district, but I would like to open it up to questions.
All right, unmute my video there. Okay. All right, thank you, Micah. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
you covered a lot of territory here in 20 minutes. You know, PPE, really just all of the in-classroom sort of aspects of washing hands and, you know, just good hygiene and all that. But all the facility issues too, you covered, I think, very well with HVAC units and air exchanging units and so on. You've got the facilities piece, and then, of course, the curriculum piece. You know, that's a major issue as well with all of the exceptions and all of that. So we've I think given the audience quite a bit of material to think about here. So let's go to some questions. Micah, we had a few submitted in advance. Let's cover those first, and then we'll go to the online questions. And I see we've got 14 questions, so we'll try to hustle through and get through as much as we can in by 2:45. Right. Again, if you have a question, go to the Q&A section on your menu bar and type that in. But Micah, the first question is with regard to can the schools vary how they approach this? So what kind of authority or leeway have you given individual school buildings to sort of customize or manage their particular circumstance?
Yeah, I think that goes back to that initial response on the operational guidance. We gave the 1,000-foot view. There are specific requirements. They are not negotiable that our schools have to do. And then within that, they're going to have to tailor some of those things to fit their individual building need. Okay.
And then also, let's walk us through, we're at the high school, right? And one of the students at the high school tests positive. So what are the steps there? Then what happens?
Sure. So right now, the county health department has made it very clear that they will be responsible for all contact tracing. They do not want the schools to involve themselves in that because they have very strict protocols on what determines what is a close contact. And so that will be handled by them. I think the challenge that we're faced with right now, and we're still trying to get some legal opinion on, is to what extent can a district or an individual school notify parents of a positive case? And the challenge with that is it doesn't take, if I send an email to, say, LROD parents and say a teacher or a staff member has tested positive for COVID, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out who that is. And then have I inadvertently violated HIPAA relative to someone's personal health information? You know, I know that with pertussis in the past, the county health department has let us know. We've worked with them to do the contact tracing with that, and then we have sent letters out in the past, but we're waiting for a little more clarification on that, just to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where we're disclosing information that we shouldn't. Okay, very good point about health security issues to be sure to stay on top of. So thanks for that answer. Micah, we've got a question from Maria at NBC Montana TV asking about some of the other school districts around the area have announced that all elementary and high school would be required to wear masks. And are there, what are the exemptions, or are there exemptions in the Kalispell School District? Yeah, so I think Maria maybe was looking at some previous guidance, and there's been an evolution to what the board has put into place in terms of policy. Initially in April, we said, CDC actually said masks are not recommended for people who are healthy. They have changed their stance. We've been working with the Montana chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics and their recommendations. Even a week ago, it was strongly encouraged K-5. Last night, it was require it K-12. So I think that answers that question.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. A good example of how some of this guidance will evolve over time.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. We have a question from Jessica regarding kindergarten. And is there an A-B type of environment for kindergarten, or what is the structure around kindergarten?
Yes, and so there's going to be some information around K-5 and kindergarten in particular that will come out on the district website hopefully today. I got the communication from the elementary principals of what that schedule would look like. Kindergarten is always the exception to the rule in terms of first day. They try and bring the kids in slowly, acclimate them to the classroom, get to know their teacher, get to know their peers. So that information will be out there and available. I got the email, I could pull it up and read it off, but for the sake of time, just know that that information will be there. You bet, and feel free to send it to us, and we can post it on our website as well to help you push that out. That'd be great. Yeah. So let's go to, we have a high school parent by the name of Sydney asking about whether it's possible for seniors to only go to the classes they need for credit to graduate. In this example, her son needs only 2 credits to graduate. So how are you accommodating for a variety of different circumstances for high school seniors or other students? Yeah, and I think we would take those on a case-by-case basis. Certainly understand the rationale for that. Previous policy said that you had to be enrolled in so many, and part of that is really tied to our funding for our school. So if a student is enrolled less than 4 hours a day, we do not get full funding for that student. And so as we look at it from a district perspective, I understand the personal desire for maybe wanting to do that. But we're going to have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And the other part I would say to that is that even though they only need 2 classes for graduation, that's bare bones. And I would really encourage parents to look at what is going to help my student be most successful in their next step in life. And we offer free education to our students in a variety of classes. And I think taking advantage of that is critical for our students. Yes, right. Good point. Appreciate that answer. So let's talk about teachers. We've talked about students and, kind of their curriculum needs and so on. And of course, you may have teachers as well who have different health requirements and challenges and all of that. And so talk about the environment for teachers and what's being done to protect them and take into account their needs and requirements. Yeah, and I think the response to that is very similar to what we're doing for all of our staff and all of our students in our buildings, that all of the things that we've identified in terms of health and safety measures, whether it's controlling the airflow in the classrooms and buildings, whether it's providing plexiglass cubicle type spaces, to create more distance. It has come up, where teachers have requested that they be given N95 masks. And our health professionals have said over and over, you do not need to have an N95 mask in this setting. And that there's a limited supply of those, and they really should be reserved for first line responders in healthcare and emergency services. Okay, very good, thanks. Talk a little bit more about just the flexibility of each building. You said that there's some minimums that everybody needs to adhere to, and that there are some items that have flexibility. So for example, could one of the buildings make a decision about masks? Is that a mandatory or a required item? And then also, what about in-class instruction? Is that an area where there's flexibility or not? Yeah, the things that are required, such as masks, a requirement is a requirement. And so there is no flexibility in that regard. Saying that, we obviously see if anybody's been wearing face masks lately, which I certainly have, you get tired of them. My voice is gravelly, it's sore. I'm sure that's a byproduct of that, plus a lot of talking. And, we recognize that even with our elementary kids, they're going to need some breaks. And so why can't a teacher identify a space in a classroom and say, look, this is an area where if you need to take your mask off for a minute, you can go over into this area where you're socially distanced and physically distanced from the rest of your class to do that. Or can I take my students outside and for a couple of minutes and say, all right, everybody spread out, here's the X on the ground and you can take your mask off. And then when we come back into class, it's mask back on. So that's where the flexibility comes into play. But, once they're in the school and in the buildings, the face mask will be required.
Yeah, good. I see we have another question on masks, but I think we've covered that pretty thoroughly at this point. So let's jump down. We really haven't got into high school sports and what's going on there. That's a big question all the time, and one that colleges are really wrestling with. I'm sure high schools are as well.
Yes, and I would really like to know what the answers are. There has been a lot of discussion with county health departments, with the AA superintendents in particular, and our athletic directors around high school activities. And right now it's really centering on what is the interpretation of the 50 person limit. And certain counties are saying that 50 people is 50 people. So we'll just use football as the example. You have your 5 officials, you have your 3 chain gang, that's part of your 50. You have your coaches, and then what are you left with for players? We're looking at maybe 12, 14 students on a sideline to play football. And so there's a lot of discussion going on at the state level with the Montana High School Association, with the governor's office around how to interpret that rule. So in Kalispell, if we say, 50 is 50 on the field at one time, 22 players, the chain gang and the officials, you're under 50, and the kids that are on the sideline and the other coaches are not inclusive of that. And then you get to the other question, what about spectators? So if in one county, if they say 50 is 50 is 50, but we say, well, if we can put parents in the stands and they're socially distanced and they're wearing a face mask, is that allowable? So they're debating that at the highest levels at this point, and we're waiting for more guidance. I know that the AA in one concession at this point has suggested to drop non-conference football and volleyball games. So I think Glacier High School was scheduled to go to Billings, and Billings was sending one of their schools to Flathead High School. So right now, the way it stands, those games would be canceled. So we'd have a delayed start to the season. But also out there under consideration is, do we flip seasons and run football in the spring, starting possibly February 1st, and then looking at extending typical spring sports like track later into beyond after school ends. So lots of discussion around that.
Yeah, right. That'll be a big topic and interest going forward for sure, especially for those high school seniors and really all across the district, I'm sure. What about another mask question? It's regarding medical exemptions. I don't know if we've covered that. Is there anything more to add to that on the mask question?
There will be some additional guidance on that and referencing exemptions and things like that. Talking with one of the local pediatricians today, they said that it would be very, very rare that someone would be exempt, and that they would have to provide a note from the doctor in order to meet that exemption requirement. We have to follow ADA guidelines, and so we're going to be held to that standard, and so we'll work through that as we go.
Okay, great. Let's see. The next question is regarding what the ability or software tools for handling a remote and in-school learning, does that vary from building to building? Is there any advantage, to using a universal system across the districts? Talk about sort of how you're managing your load in the online and remote component.
Sure. Well, and I think one thing to keep in mind in that question is that at any point in time, I mean, I could get a call at 10 o'clock at night from the county health department and say, hey, we need you to shut your school down. And so we're going to have to go into fully remote. And I think that's something important for parents to keep in mind, that it could be school by school, it could be a class, it could be the entire district. And we'll make those decisions when we need to. But that being said, we are using Google Classroom as a platform for learning. We have purchased some additional software, Screencastify. We have purchased a software add-on that automatically rosters students from PowerSchool into the Google Classroom. So it's not like you have to send out a code and do all these other steps to try and make that happen. Another add-on, we've added a single sign-on. So each individual student will have a platform, and it's called Clever. And then in Clever, it will have the icons for the specific apps that the teachers are using, or any links to specific resources. So we're trying to streamline that and create a better opportunity should it arise. And we are telling our staff that, from day one, you're going to have to teach your students how to be a remote learner, so that no matter what happens this year, and you're going to have to keep reinforcing it and using it consistently throughout the year, so that if we do have to go into remote, we aren't going to miss a beat. We recognize that what we did last spring was not perfect. It was not the best. It was what we could do given the circumstances that we had to face. But also recognizing that we can be better. And so a lot of effort and time is being spent on being better in that regard.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a process. So if it's any comfort, we're learning how to do all the same thing in business associations and the businesses across the county as well. How about, let's see, we talked about operational planning in the case of cases in school. So I think we've covered that. But let's talk about the timeline here going through the end of this. So last Friday, people were supposed to declare. You noted in your opening remarks that some people say, I need some more information. I want to know which classes. Can you talk a little bit about the timeline from here to the start of school, and how you'll be sorting through which classes and how you'll handle that?
Yeah, so yesterday our high school administrators met and did the initial look at remote learning and what that's going to look like. We've developed the courses, or at least identified the course titles. We're working on who those instructors will be. So we're trying to have, between elementary, middle, and high school, we're trying to have everything wrapped up by this Friday. And then from that, parents of students that selected remote instruction there will be contact made, and we're going to attempt to have all of that done by August 24th. In the meantime, the teachers that we identify are going to have to get together. We're calling them a cadre of remote instructors, where they'll develop their kind of essential understandings of how this is going to work, and what the expectations are for them, what the expectations are for students. And so we want to make sure that is addressed and communicated. Our remote instruction will actually start September 8th. We need to be able to have time to put that together, to put the curriculum together. There's some consolidation of certain classes, and so we're just going to need that time for those teachers to be able to hit the ground running. And, I mentioned the soft deadline. So one of our concerns is, if we've identified over 600 right now, and that balloons to 800, and we've done all this planning, and then we don't have instructors in place to accommodate more, we're just going to be, facing some even greater challenges moving forward. So lots of moving parts and pieces to that.
Yeah, definitely. A challenge to move through all the different options. So I appreciate, you and your admin team and all of your teachers flexibility to try to take all this into account and manage that whole process for what's best for the kids. Talk about just this process of will the option to switch be remote, to remote be flexible or limited to the trimester transition only? Maybe you can explain that. I'm not sure what the reference to a trimester is.
Sure. So at the elementary level, K through 8, they run most of their reporting periods on the trimester. Where at the high school, they base it off of the semester. And so when we put out our initial guidelines around remote instruction, what we're really asking is for parents to make a commitment for, at the elementary level, a trimester, and at the high school level, a semester. And there isn't going to be a whole lot of flexibility to be able to move back and forth in between that, because just capacity wise, what we're able to handle. And so, you know, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, that, you know, that decision to choose remote instruction is a personal decision. There are lots of reasons why parents want to choose that, and we're going to honor that, but it's not going to be the type of thing where we can just go back and forth and move kids in and out. And part of that is just a train of events and sequential components to education. You know, so if I'm in one place in my Algebra 1 class and I decide, well, now I want to go to remote, they're going to be in a different place. And if I decide I'm remote and I want to come back, what am I missing? So we just have to, you know, as hard as it is, there is a point where we have to say, no, this was the option that you chose, and that's what you're going to be needing to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see, boy, we got a lot more mask questions. I think we've covered. If you see, I know you've got the Q&A up in front of you as well. Is there anything you want to add to any of the masking questions here?
Yeah, one of the questions is, if my child is having trouble wearing a mask for the length of the day, what will happen to her? Will she be sent home due to this? And my response is generally no. We have to take this new thing in our lives, and we have to make it a teachable moment, and we have to be recognizing that it's a struggle. I see adults who can't wear it the whole time. And I can see that happening with our students. And so we're not turning this into a punitive issue from a school standpoint. It might be some correction, like, hey, Joe, I see your mask is off. You need to have it over your nose and mouth, and just keep working through that. And I have great confidence in our teachers and our kids to be able to adjust and adapt. And you know, and I sent out a letter just a little bit ago, you know, encouraging families, you know, if you haven't started already, start practicing with a mask. Turn the mask into something that is more of a social thing. Take them to the store and let them pick out the mask that they think they would want to wear. If you get a generic one, why don't you color it or decorate it in a way that personalizes it? And you know, we're going to work through it together as a community. And so yeah, I'm not going to send a kindergartner home for taking their face mask off. That's just not realistic. That's not what this is about.
Okay, very good. Let's see, let's jump down and talk about, we've talked about if a child goes out sick because of this, but what's the criteria for them to be able to return?
Yeah, and this is covered in our operational guidelines. But I think the thing to keep in mind, and our health professionals have said this as well, is that people get the common cold, people get influenza, people get all these other illnesses, and it doesn't require a 14-day quarantine. And so what we're really going to ask parents to do is look at the symptoms and use the guidelines from the health professionals. So, you know, being symptom-free and without a fever, without medication for 24 hours after the onset of symptoms is a key marker for when it's safe to return to school. Our healthcare professionals have said, you know, every sniffle and cough and temperature does not need to be run up the chain. If it persists for more than 72 hours, then that's a good option for parents to consider contacting their healthcare provider. But one thing that was very clear is don't contact that county health department. That is not their job. They're only working specifically with the positive cases and the contact tracing.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great point, and to cover that. Listen, we're bumping up against the time we asked of you. Do you have maybe 5 more minutes? We want to be respectful of your time. I know you got a lot on your agenda today.
I have time.
Okay, all right. Let's take a few more questions and then we'll go to your close. But here's a question regarding just teachers and so on. I know you've naturally, a big school district like ours has got some turnover, but what about sort of impacts of this coronavirus and maybe even the changes in instruction and so on? How is that impacting your teacher corps?
Yeah, I guess what I would say first and foremost is our teachers have been absolutely amazing. We surveyed them the other day to ask if they would volunteer to be remote instructors or just teach synchronously or even do a combination of in-person and remote. And the vast majority have said, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm a team player. Don't pick me first, but I'll do whatever I need to do for the greater good. And to that end, we have not lost teachers, for that reason. They want to be back in school with their students. That is their passion. That is their love. And so they're very supportive of the reopening plan. Not that they don't have questions and are concerned about their own health. They've certainly expressed that, but are feeling more comfortable when additional guidance and clarification on some of these things happen. We have very few teachers who will be out on FFCRA leave, but the ones that are, we are working with to ensure that they have a position as a remote instructor. And so we're being as accommodating as we can as well. So.
Okay, great to hear. Just a follow-up on that would be just regarding testing of teachers and what that looks like.
Yeah, and so right now there's no plan to test substitute teachers before they come into the school, but they will be subject to all of the same requirements that our students are. We are going to do additional training with our substitutes prior to the start of school. We'll be paying them additional dollars to do that. And so we're going to take that very seriously as we would with any visitor into our school building.
All right, well, that's good to know and a good precaution to take. Let's see, what about, there was a question regarding if you're opening up everything and the windows and doors are open to have, does that compromise security? You want to comment about that?
Yeah, and I think, opening windows, from a security compromise, yes, I guess you could say that. But there's also a balance between protecting the health and safety of students within the classroom. And I think in particular about, say a high school and they're on the second floor, having an open window doesn't necessarily do that. I don't see our main building doors and access points being open in a way that would compromise the security. We'll still have our entry points at our elementary schools and high schools where people have to come through at least some sort of screening process to even be able to gain entrance into the district.
Yeah, okay. Let's take a final question here. Let's see. Lots of questions more about masking. I think we've covered quite a bit about masking. Let's see. Do you see a question on there you think would be a good one to end on, Micah? There's more masking questions.
They're all great questions, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
What I would say, Joe, and to those who are attending, is that we have a communications plan that we have developed and are working on. The first piece, I've been communicating throughout the summer as we've made decisions and communicated those, but there will be more information coming, and there will be stuff specifically from individual school sites to help with that. But I'll be doing some Facebook posts on our district Facebook page, talking with building principals, with local health people, and trying to get more information out there, because the general consensus is that silence is anxiety provoking. And so we'll continue to do that. We're going to have a fresh look on our district website and all of our school websites here very shortly, but there will be more information and more specific guidance and direction in the weeks to come before school starts. And then we'll continue to do that throughout the year.
Yeah, that's great. Micah, thanks for being on the call today. And I want to encourage you to use us to help push out information. Our communications network is over 5,000 owners of managers and businesses here in Flathead County. So a lot of our owners and managers are parents of school district kids for Kalispell schools. So we're always willing to help you push your message out and communicate out there to the community. So feel free to call on us anytime you think we can be helpful here at the Kalispell Chamber. And I want to thank you, but also all of your administrative team and your teachers who've been working so hard over the summer, not just with adjusting last spring, but in preparing for this fall program and everything that it involves with this constantly shifting sands under our feet here. So Micah, thank you. Welcome to the superintendent position. I'm sure you had no idea, what you were taking on when you interviewed there last February and March, but we couldn't be more pleased to have you on board, and looking forward to working with you both on the board of directors and in your role as superintendent across the district here. So again, thanks very much, and all the best to you and all of your staff across the district in the days ahead here.
And thank you, Joe, and the chamber community. Appreciate the opportunity, and would welcome another opportunity to come back and answer more questions, and whatever we can do as a district to support our families and students and our business community, we're all in. So appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Micah.
All right.
Best. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.